Is the world of comic books being overrun by wokeness? Well, since we're talking about it, you probably have a pretty good guess here. But let's speak to somebody who actually knows this world inside and out and has had considerable success in it. Ethan Van Sciver is with us now. He is the owner of All Caps Comics and has the YouTube channel Comic Artist Pro Secrets and has been involved with, well, he'll tell us. Ethan, thanks so much for joining.
Buck Sexton, what a pleasure, what a privilege.
So tell me, my man, what are some of, in the old days, some of the comics for the folks listening that you illustrated, created, were involved in? What were some of the names?
I worked at DC Comics and Marvel Comics, but mostly DC for about 2 decades. I worked on Green Lantern and The Flash, Batman, Superman, all of the big titles.
Why, this is a little bit of a departure, but I have to ask, I'm curious, why was the Green Lantern movie so bad?
I don't know. It ruined everything. No, see, I was working with Jeff Johns. We actually took Green Lantern and made it into DC Comics #2 franchise, and then it got the movie, and I don't know what happened. It killed all of our momentum. It was awful.
I kind of, because I always liked the Green Lantern, and now I feel like he's been, people think of that movie with, I forget, the handsome guy, I forget his name, but it wasn't a good movie. Anyway, I want to ask you, though, about what happened, because you're working with some of the top comic book characters out there, working with them, creating them, right? You're not like like hanging out with Superman. You're making Superman, but in your case, the Green Lantern, not Superman. But you're doing these things, and then, well, what happened? Tell us your story. I mean, and obviously it has a happy ending, which we're going to get to. But what happened to you?
Oh, thank goodness for that. Yeah, everybody knew I was a Republican, but the entire comic book industry is made up of left-wingers. And everything was okay. People kind of used to joke with me until Trump won. When Trump won the election in 2016, they all turned on me. It was very, very strange. And I didn't understand why. I was very naive. I just went, hey, it's our turn. My guy won. Hooray. And I wore the red MAGA hat on Twitter. And they instantly, like, people I thought were my friends targeted me for utter annihilation. It was awful. And basically, I think, like, I got a few, like, creepy emails from people who were professionals who kind of said, how could you do this? How could you turn on your peers who are gay and LGBTQ and people of color? And I said, I just voted for the president. I don't understand what you're talking about. But they all teamed up and they got 19 writers at DC Comics to sign and co-sign a letter saying they'd never work with me. They sent that to the highest executives at Warner Brothers, and my time was quickly at an end at DC Comics.
How woke is the comic book industry now? I mean, give us a sense. See, I grew up, I liked the X-Men growing up. That was really the only comic book series that I knew a bit from actually buying some comics and everything. This is when I was a kid, maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. And it was very different then, obviously. And this is a long time ago now. I don't know. I think we're pretty close to the same age. You're a couple of years older than me. And how much has the comic book industry, which is a big industry, I mean, especially now that people think of these billion-dollar movie franchises attached to it, there's big dollars involved here. How woke has it gotten, Ethan?
Well, it's gotten progressively, no pun intended, more and more woke, because I think these ideas appeal to people who just, who live kind of insular, quiet lives. We're all alone in our little workspaces. We live on the internet. And so all of these ideas that come with tremendous peer pressure are incredibly appealing to people who are already sort of voting Democrat. And basically what happened was these feminists basically showed up in the comic book industry, took a look around themselves, assessed what this male-dominated space looked like to them, and just basically said, it's kind of sexist here, guys. Maybe you should let us come in here and make some changes so that it's a little less offensive and oppressive to women.
Now, can I just jump in? I mean, I'm assuming because, the women have, the equivalent of what would be a 14-inch waist and let's say a busty cup size, that this was considered, highly insensitive, and feminists get enraged by this kind of thing. But having seen enough comics, whether it's Cyclops or Superman or Wolverine, those guys don't have 6-packs. They have like 32 packs and are the equivalent of, 0% body fat. And, you know, I mean, like, they're comics, right? Aren't they supposed to be an elevated ideal of human physiques that aren't supposed to be real?
Of course, that's what comics have always been. That's the appeal of them. It's the idealized human form for both men and women. That's why people kind of like them and have always been attracted to them. But I think feminists just thought, hey, if we kind of cover up these characters a little bit more, stop having this sort of oppressive idea that men mostly rescue women and women want to be rescued by men. Let's show some women rescuing men every now and then, and things like that. Let's cover up skin. They did this really strange thing where they started to decide that superheroines' breasts were too big, and they started to shrink them and cover them up and change female anatomy into these really strange. You have to actually see what they've done with characters like Captain Marvel, characters like She-Hulk. It is very, very, very peculiar, very strange.
We're speaking to Ethan Van Sciver. He is the owner of All Caps Comics and the YouTube channel Comic Artist Pro Secret. So you get the woke mob coming after you because you're a Republican and you work in the comic industry, just like this has happened to people who are actors, people who are athletes. If you don't toe the woke line, somehow it never goes in the other direction where if you're super left wing and progressive, all of a sudden a bunch of right wingers demand that you no longer can work in an industry or you're not allowed to pursue your life passion anymore. We all know there's a huge double standard here. But then what did you decide to do? Because I like the story that you have to tell here, Ethan, because we often talk as conservatives about making our own social media platforms and making our own. Look, I want conservative-leaning movie studios. I want conservative-leaning news channels and things like that. You did something with comics. Tell us what you did.
Yeah, we have to do that. We have to make our own spaces. So I realized early on that one of the big problems that comics lacks is a promotional marketing device. So I went on YouTube and I just started talking about comics, built up a crowd of about 150,000 subscribers. And that was my promotional vehicle. From there, I used Indiegogo, which is a great crowdfunding platform, to raise money to make my own comic books. And we have raised, I think to date, nearly $4 million that we have used to put out comics. My book is called Cyberfrog. It's been a tremendous success. And I've started to pull in other blacklisted conservative comic book creators to publish them within my company. It's been great. It really is great, but we're still being targeted by leftists who are hoping to stop all caps comics from succeeding.
Are you targeted by some of the same groups, these sleeping giants, or is there a specific, comic book mob that comes after people?
Yeah, yes, they're calling what this whole conflict is between the left and then, the right in comics. It's called Comicsgate, because they want to sort of remind people of Gamergate. We adopted that. We just said, yes, we're Comicsgate. That's right. We are the gate to better comics in the future. Sure, that's who we are. Of course, they're targeting us. They're saying we harass women and trans, and they're using their typical leftist playbook to kind of smear and slime us in the hopes that, Cyberfrog or any of the books that we put out never become movies or video games. But the thing is, they can't really stop us because we have built our own platform. We do have our own audience, and there's no way that they can really gatekeep that. They can't really prevent us from selling and marketing to each other. So I don't think it's ever going to end, unfortunately, but we do need more people to actually, start up video game companies that keep social justice warriors out. More movies, more television, more different platforms that are immune to this kind of stuff.
Ethan Van Sciver, everybody, owner of All Caps Comics. Ethan, if people want to check out your work, and the frog, tell some of the comic book titles you got. Tell us where they can go.
Oh, you can go on Indiegogo. You can go on Google and just look for Cyberfrog. You can look for Rainbow the Brute, Snowman, Creed, Starblades. And we have some of the coolest titles. I think you're going to be very, very excited. We keep our standards very, very high, and I think I think people are going to be pretty pleased with our product.
Ethan Van Sciver, everybody. Ethan, thank you so much, man. Good luck to you.
Thanks, Buck.